Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Brooke Simonson. Brooke, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
I consider myself badass. I hope everybody listening does. I mean, I don't know how you define ordinary versus badass, but I think just in my career path, I had a career change, which I thought was pretty badass, and how I help mostly women now achieve their confidence and energy and physique goals. I just feel like I'm really thriving in a passion that I love to do. So yeah, badass.
So, have you always felt like a badass? And was it one thing that made you feel like a badass, like one specific incident, or was it a bunch of incidents over time?
I think probably with age, I felt more confident in who I was. And so with every year, I've probably felt more badass and just owning everything about myself, flaws and all, and working to always be kind of a better version of myself and constantly improving, but also really just embracing who I am. So I've never been the type of person who dreads getting older. I actually look forward to it. And I feel like my 30s are better than my 20s were. And I'm hoping that the trajectory continues. I think that a lot of aging has to do with your mindset about it. And I know you talk about that a lot here on the show, but yeah, I'm just excited. 40s are supposed to be awesome and 50s and 60s beyond that. So I'm excited for what the future has to hold and becoming more badass as I age.
Yes, I'm with you. It's like I think it just gets better and better with time.
Exactly. And the alternative, I mean, it's kind of a dark thought, but the alternative is not to age. So I think aging is a privilege. So I would never want to dread the next year. I'm just grateful to be here and to be alive.
Such a good perspective. So, Brooke, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'd love to. So, I currently work as a nutrition coach, and my specialty is sustainable weight loss. But that wasn't always my career. So, I mentioned I had a career shift. I taught English for 12 years. I lived on the East Coast at the time, and I taught middle school at first and then high school. And throughout my 20s, I started teaching right away, right at 22. I had kind of a variety of health struggles of my own. I gained about 20 pounds after college, and with that came sluggishness, fatigue, bloat, and not feeling like my most confident, best self. And I did what I thought I should do, which is the path I think a lot of women and men take, which is exercising all the time as much as I could. The elliptical was my, I don't know, weapon of choice, if you will, at the gym. And I was on that 6 to 7 times a week, 45 minutes at a time. At one point, I was counting every calorie I ate. I was trying to always have better willpower and self control. I did the whole cutting out carbs thing for a while. I bought juice cleanses. I just really tried it all. And nothing worked in that I wasn't able to lose the weight I wanted to lose and feel the way I wanted to lose in my body, or feel the way I wanted to feel in my body long term. So I would end up losing 5 pounds or even 10 pounds. But then when I stopped following strict rules or being super adherent to whatever program or plan I was following, I would gain the weight back. So I was in the yo-yo cycle that I think a lot of especially women find themselves in. And I've always just kind of been a research nut and just wanted to figure this out, wanted to crack the code. I thought there are people out there who aren't constantly on a diet and they make it look so easy. Like, what are their secrets? What are they doing that I haven't been able to figure out? So I really made learning everything I possibly could about nutrition, health, weight loss, a hobby and kind of a side hustle, if you will. And on nights and weekends, I was still teaching, but I was diving into research articles, podcasts. I eventually enrolled in the Institute of Transformational Nutrition to become a certified nutrition coach, not even wanting to pursue that career at the time, but just wanting to get my hands on evidence-based information. And it really took me about 10 years of trial and error and all of this research and coursework to discover what I call the magic pill, which is you have to learn some basic skills. So I teach my clients now a skills-based approach to weight loss. It's based in science and evidence. It's not based on my opinions. It's based on research and what actually works for the body. And once you learn these basic skills, you're able to adopt them and tweak them for your unique likes, dislikes, time constraints, and lifestyle, which is where you get the sustainable success long term, because there isn't a one size fits all approach that works for everyone. It has to be very individualized. So my husband and I ended up moving from the East Coast back to the West Coast to be closer to family. And at that point, I quit my teaching career, part of the badass, I guess, just full dove into creating my own business. And now I work full time as a nutrition coach.
So how long were you a teacher for?
12 years. So from 22 to 34.
So was that a hard transition for you to make, and what led you to making that decision?
It was and it wasn't. I definitely, as I started learning more about nutrition and health and getting my hands on all of the awesome information I was learning and seeing lasting transformation in my own body, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And I quickly learned that not everybody wants to talk about the research I was learning at the lunch table, at the school lunch table. So I started a blog. And so then I started blogging on nights and weekends. And it really became this passion project. And I used to joke, I mean, I've been on podcasts and talked about this before, but if my principal were to hear this, probably wouldn't be so happy, but I would spend at a certain point, my grading periods, my free periods, diving into nutrition and weight loss and health topics more than doing my teaching job. So it became pretty clear that I still love teaching. And I think that comes across when I work with clients, and I still kind of create curriculum, if you will, for them to help educate them and get the knowledge they need. So I still feel like I get to use those skills, but I was pretty burnt out on teaching. If I think towards the last years, I loved my coworkers to death. They were like family to me, loved that part of the job, but I also taught in an all boys high school. And so that could be a bit of a challenge at times. And, parents, when you have to deal with parents, that could be another challenge that teachers listening will understand. So it was scary in a way to give up the stability of a full-time job and paycheck. But fortunately, I have a partner who's extremely supportive and encouraged me to dive into this new entrepreneurial venture. So that was at least good.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to your story. I'm just about to complete IIN, which is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. I'm on my last week with them, but it was more for personal reasons. Like, okay, I want to figure out my health. I want to figure out my weight once and for all without like doing like Weight Watchers or, Atkins or any diet out there that everybody's probably tried. It's like sometimes the commercial diets don't work for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds exactly the same. Mine's called ITN, but similar online coursework, and pursued it also myself for personal reasons at first, and then it evolved into something more. But that's so cool that you're doing that.
And how did that experience change your life?
Through ITN,
Mhm.
what I learned, I think just that I was finally able to ditch the things you mentioned and the things that I mentioned, and the all or nothing mindset around food and just nutrition and weight loss. I used to definitely think if I wasn't perfect, that I was going to fail. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Really, it's all about progress, not perfection. I help clients enjoy all foods in moderation. I'd say that was probably the biggest win for me, that I don't feel like anything is off limits now. I'm able, through the mindset shifts I've made and the behavioral systems I've set up, to eat nutrient dense foods most of the time, but still enjoy nachos and wine and other favorites of mine without any guilt or shame, and without gaining the weight back. I was able to lose the 20 pounds and keep them off for good.
Yeah.
And so that's been really freeing.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No worries.
No, I completely forgot what I was going to ask. Let's talk about that idea of restriction, like how we restrict ourselves and then like going the other way and binging, and how do you stop that?
It really is a cycle, as you're describing, right? You binge and then you feel terrible about it. And so then most of the time, the reaction is to just enter a period of extreme restriction. And let's use what I just said, nachos, for an example. So I had a big plate of nachos, I binge, I feel horrible. Now I'm just not going to eat any nachos ever again. But then you'll crack. You'll hit a point where you'll allow yourself, or maybe not even consciously, you'll be at a bar, with friends, and you'll eat the nachos. So then you binge again, you end up overeating them, which leads back to the restriction. And I think breaking out of that really requires a lot of mindset work. So kind of what I mentioned, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, progress, not perfection, knowing that if you eat one huge salad, that it's not going to make you healthy or achieve your goals in that one meal. In the same way, eating nachos isn't going to make you unhealthy, and I'm using air quotes if you're listening, or sabotage all of your progress in that one meal. And so that's sometimes a good way to talk to clients about it. If they do say, oh, I had X last night and I feel like it kind of derailed me, I throw it back at them. Well, if you had a huge salad, would you feel like you're just set for success forever? And the answer is usually no. And so there's a lot of different mindset tweaks that I work on with clients. But really, I think the binge restrict cycle is broken with the mindset shifts, and also just learning how to fuel your body with nutrient dense foods and what that even means in terms of prioritizing protein and fiber at most meals. I had no idea for years, even the most rudimentary knowledge of what I was putting into my body and what would give me energy. And so I was just kind of taking shots in the dark, and a lot of the times eating things that were influenced by something like Weight Watchers or keto. It was always a different eating pattern I was doing, but I really had no idea what anything was doing for my body. So just learning that can also help you break out of the binge restrict cycle when you just start feeling full and less snacky between meals and having more energy. And then that overflows into more confidence. It's pretty powerful.
So earlier you mentioned this idea of a magic pill, and everybody always wishes there was a magic pill out there. There's not, but I think you have a different perspective on that. Will you talk about that a little bit?
So yeah, most people are looking for the magic pill in the form of an actual pill or a meal replacement shake program, or the chalky protein bars, as clients describe them, that they've eaten, or the 21-day sugar detox. Those are the magic pills that don't work. If you want to think about, are there magic pills when it comes to losing weight and keeping it off, I would say reframe that idea. So I mentioned learning the skills behind different evidence-based research-backed habits is one magic pill. Because once you have skills, you can't unlearn them. It's really cool. It's like you learn a language or you learn how to ride a bike. Once you have that skill, you have it forever. Another magic pill, if you will, would be consistency. Staying consistent, the more consistent you are, the more success you're going to have, especially long term. I would say another one is patience. A lot of times clients come to me expecting to lose 2, 3, 4 pounds a week because maybe that's what's happened in the past on some quick fix diet, but that's not a healthy and sustainable rate of weight loss. So the patience to understand that if you stick with habits consistently, imperfectly, it doesn't have to be your habits don't have to be perfect, but if you stick with them and you're patient and you're losing a half pound to a pound a week, that's a healthy, sustainable rate of weight loss, and that's how you will see success.
I left myself on mute. My dog is snoring down below me, so I keep putting it on mute so nobody hears him snore, but
It's funny because then I just pressed mute because we live near a train. And so the train was coming. I don't know if you heard that, but
I did once you mentioned it. It's so funny. I used to live near a train track and then I just stopped noticing it because it's like it becomes normal.
yeah, it is funny how it kind of becomes normal. But then my husband and I, it's without fail, anytime you're on a podcast, an important call, it's always loudest. So we're like, "Da."
Yes, absolutely. But no, I like how you said that about consistency because I think I've always said being consistent and persistent is so important and to just not give up even when you have those down days or down times. I think that's what sets people up for success, whether it be for their health or their fitness or finances, whatever it is, it's just consistently showing up.
That's such a good point. And I love how you say that, consistent and persistent.
Yes, I think it's so important. And some of these stuff, it's like, why isn't this stuff taught in school? Like, why aren't we taught these skills in school? It might be more
Exactly.
helpful.
I agree. Yeah. And coming from an education background at a high school, the kids would go to health, and I would ask them when I got more interested in nutrition and stuff, what are you learning in health? And it was really weird. The teachers would put on a documentary, which are usually extremely biased, or they would learn, kind of from a textbook. I don't know. I'm sure some health teachers out there are great. I don't want to demonize any teachers, but I don't feel like in health class when I was in high school, and I still feel today, as if there's a big disconnect. Or even if you are learning stuff in health class, then you go to the school lunch, which is, pizza and fries. There's a lot that could be done, I think. Obviously requires a lot of money and a whole new philosophy on education, but it's a skill that I think is so important to learn. We eat 3+ times a day. So I find it also very bizarre that we don't learn this in school.
Yes, but then also like we expect teachers, we expect doctors, we expect certain people to be the professionals or to teach it. But it's like the reality is a lot of them haven't learned it. A lot of them haven't been taught those skills. So I think it's even more important to like look for those answers ourselves.
Exactly. And I think it's really cool that more doctors are realizing that they don't have the nutritional knowledge, which maybe they shouldn't even have. I mean, they have so much other knowledge, right? So outsourcing nutrition counseling to dietitians and nutrition coaches, I think is happening more and more, which is great.
So, what is the biggest problem that your clients struggle with when they come to you? And then what is it that you suggest to them?
I would say the biggest problem that they all reference immediately is just not having the knowledge to know what to do next. They're very frustrated and confused, and they're wanting to feel differently. I always say I help people with weight loss. I'm not out there saying everybody has to lose weight. Some people don't want to lose weight, some people do. I want to be the go-to resource for somebody who does want to lose weight, but without all of the restrictive quick fix diets and fads. They usually come to me for that. And the problem is not knowing what to do aside from all of the things they've tried. And so we work through a series of personalized recommendations. I can especially do that with one-on-one clients. I also have a group program where clients can watch pre-recorded videos and hop on weekly coaching calls with me. But in my one-on-one program, it's really getting to know the ins and outs of every person's unique lifestyle and then figuring out small behavior tweaks they can make. And I think the key word there is small. So we start with one, maybe two changes the first week. We talk about 10 every about 10 days. We see what's going well, how's that one or two maybe changes going for you, what's challenging, and then we move from there. And we don't add a new change until the existing ones feel effortless. So I'm looking for you to, let's say you have a hydration goal. So we're going to figure out ways that you can set a phone reminder or keep several water bottles around the house or stack water to every meal and snack, drink water in the morning when you brush your teeth. I mean, there's all these different ways we make water something that actually happens, these practical, actionable ways instead of just drink more water. And then we reassess. And if it's not habitual yet, if it's not just coming to you naturally, we'll keep that goal. So for listeners, I think that's one takeaway from this is if you're doing a bunch all at once, it may feel like that's the best way to tackle your goal, whatever it is. And usually that's what a diet or program has had you do in the past. They've required you to overhaul your entire lifestyle. Whole30 comes to mind. A lot of people like to do that at like in January, or the 75 hard, all these programs, but they require a lot from you. And those usually aren't sustainable. So if you make just one change a week, that's 52 changes in a year, which is incredible. So take it slow, and slow will be successful. I promise you. Just it feels like you want to rush sometimes. And if I have a client and we're working on breakfast and water, sometimes they'll text me and they'll say, okay, I want to start working on lunch too. And I'll say, okay, let's pause, right? Let's really talk about breakfast and water before we move too fast. So I really understand the desire to do a lot all at once, but you have to think that's probably what you've done in the past and it hasn't worked. So maybe be open to trying this new way.
So this water example that you're talking about, do you have them start out drinking water all the time? Do you have them start out drinking like 6 ounces of water, 12 ounces of water? How do you start for somebody? Well, like I used to be, I would get my water and my coffee and that would be it. But
Yeah.
how does that person start out?
So usually it's very individualized. So I would chat with a client, and I actually have a client right now who said the exact thing. They have 1 glass of water a day and then maybe 2 or 3 cups of coffee. And then I like the idea of habit stacking. James Clear brings this up in his book, Atomic Habits. So something that can work really well is every time you're eating, whether it's a meal or snack, to stack a glass of water to that meal. So if you're thinking you're going from 1 glass of water, let's say you eat 4 times throughout the day, that could up you to 5 glasses of water. So on the next call, we'll talk about that. And maybe they'll say, 80% of the time, I think I hit 5 glasses of water. There were some days I maybe only had 2 or 3, but that's still a huge improvement from just 1. So we'd probably keep that habit again moving forward. And then eventually say, is there another time in the day you feel like you could get water? Could you keep a water container in your car? Just sometimes strategically placing waters all around the house to jog your memory, or a phone alarm can work well. But the cool thing about water is that usually when you start drinking more water, your body craves water more. And so it becomes kind of more intuitive and natural. And then today, I actually just hopped off a call with a client. She said, I feel like the water thing is going awesome. I'm drinking 6 to 8 glasses a day from her previous one. So we left that as a small action for the next week and added something new.
How long does it usually take your clients to adopt a new habit?
So I would say generally it's about at least 2 calls, and we're talking about every 10 days. So 20-ish days minimum. The water one could be like a 20 to 30 day one. But then something that could be a little more challenging is prioritizing protein and fiber at breakfast, let's say. And so maybe they're getting 3 out of 7 breakfasts they feel are really solid. But then they have one go-to. They're getting kind of sick of that one, so they want more variety. So we're trying to figure out what are some other high protein, high fiber breakfasts you could add to your rotation. And then we move to lunch and then eventually dinner. So some of them can take longer, and we may even keep for a couple months. It really just depends on the client and personal preferences. Some people are great eating habitually the same breakfast every day. And so that person might really, sorry about that, there's the train again. That person might just excel at that breakfast habit immediately because they have one breakfast that's their go-to and they're just in love with it and they're going to move to lunch. But if somebody wants more variety, for example, it could take longer.
So are these group coaching calls that you're doing, or group and individual?
I do individual, but I wanted to reach more people. I just find, there's only so much time in the day. And one-on-one is obviously a higher cost. So I created a group coaching program, which is also an option. So that comes with one coaching call a week where I hop on with whoever's available. And then between calls, they're watching pre-recorded videos, and I'm in a private Facebook group supporting them, usually posting Monday through Friday, some type of inspirational post or checking in, what are your small actions you're taking this week? Or I have What You Making Wednesday, which is where I post a picture of something I've eaten recently, and I kind of break down why it is I set the meal up the way I did. So that's fun, but it's cool to reach more people through that.
So can you talk about that, like the power of having a community or the power of being around other people who are going through the same struggles and hardships and wins that you are?
I think accountability is so critical, and research suggests that it can improve your odds of success by up to 95%. Just to have an accountability buddy, somebody checking in. It doesn't have to be a coach. It could just be a friend, a sister, a partner, a child, but somebody who's kind of in your camp and on board with you. Behavior change is hard, and especially when you're going out to dinner, you're going to fast food after a soccer game, you're living with a family that isn't necessarily making the same changes that you are. So community is critical. I provide that through either myself as your coach or through the Facebook community, where you can connect with like-minded people who have similar goals. But even if you're not hiring a coach, I would say just seek out someone that could be that person for you, so that you aren't going through it alone. And you can just even shoot a text of, hey, I don't feel like cooking tonight, but I'm going to do it instead of getting DoorDashed. And then somebody can say, awesome, way to go, keep it up. Just that tiny little text can be so helpful.
Yes, I think that sometimes we forget just like the small ways that we can be accountable to other people and how other people can root us on. Like sometimes there's so much shame as it relates to food. And
Yeah.
like when you're sharing it with other people, or you hear other people's stories, it's like, oh, I'm not the only one that has thought that or that has went through that.
Exactly. And I love social media. I think there's so much positive that comes from it and connection. But I do sometimes feel like if you're following someone who's 10 steps ahead of you in terms of their healthy eating or weight loss or nutrition journey, it can feel like they have it all figured out and that there's something wrong with you and you're just lacking self-control or willpower. And it kind of, you can put somebody else on a pedestal. I know the same thing can happen for me building a business, right? Somebody who's further along than me, it can seem like they have it all figured out, but they were once exactly where I was. So it's just really helpful to connect with people who are exactly where you are, or a coach who's very transparent about you're not wrong if you're feeling all these things, and it's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with you.
And I know that you talk a bit about like the mindset piece, and how mindset relates to eating. Will you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I would probably say that mindset is even more important than behavior change, because anybody can boil 10 eggs and have 10 eggs on hand for snacks throughout the week, right? Like, I'm not saying it's easy. Habit change can be hard no matter what it is, but boiling 10 eggs is going to be a lot easier than completely reworking how you think about food, how you approach meals at restaurants, that how you approach the cake at a wedding or at a birthday party that was once triggering to you. There's a whole lot that goes into it. I've mentioned a couple of the changes or the mindset shifts that I encourage clients to make, but another one I really love, if somebody's listening and they kind of don't know what to try next, or they're tempted to try something a friend just posted on Facebook, or maybe you're getting targeted with a Facebook ad. I like to say, use the 100-year rule. So before wasting time, money, or energy on something else, look into it, see what is going to be involved, what's required, and ask yourself, am I going to be able to sustain this for 100 years? And if your answer is no, don't do that thing and find another program that will be sustainable for 100 years. I promise they exist out there. And that's a way to just kind of set yourself up for, I'm not just going to lose the weight in 21 days. This is going to be a lifelong change. So I need to approach weight loss as something that will eventually turn into weight maintenance. And a lot of the same habits that are required for weight loss are the exact same things that are required for weight maintenance. So, what can I do forever, essentially? And then put your time, money, and energy towards that.
So I think sometimes forever can be daunting. Like it
Yes,
can
yes,
be
it
like,
can.
I don't know if I can do this forever, or like I can't even do it for one day. How can I do it forever? What is maybe a mindset shift or something people could do so that they're not necessarily intimidated by the forever thought?
I think the forever thought, I agree with you. It's very overwhelming, especially when it comes to changing everything all at once. So when I say forever, I'm talking about what's one habit change you can commit to forever. And then you're going to slowly add new ones on. And so it's not that you're, doing all of the things all at once. So can you commit to stacking a glass of water to your meals and snacks forever? That seems more manageable than like I have to drink, I don't know what some crazier recommendation would be, like uh, liters or gallons of water a day, or I don't know, or going back to Whole30. I know that clients have said that's daunting before, of like getting rid of every single thing in your pantry that has some ingredient that you don't recognize, or sugar, or whatever else is dairy, gluten, everything that's eliminated. That seems really daunting. But could you keep on hand some high protein, high fiber snacks that can be easy to grab? Or when you get home from the grocery store and you have vegetables that you enjoy eating raw, could you wash and chop those up in 5 minutes right away so that they're easy to grab from your fridge and you can just get a handful whenever? Things like that feel like, okay, actually, this isn't a huge time commitment or shift, and I could do something like that forever, versus cutting out carbs forever. That's going to be impossible. Or maybe not for some people, but for me, impossible.
So why is it that habits make it so much easier?
I think when I've learned a lot from different books I've read from habit experts, I always reference James Clear. But he really goes back to willpower and self-control being finite resources. And we often rely on those. So we fill our cabinets with a bunch of things that we're trying not to eat. And then we sit on the couch at night and we try to have the self-control and the willpower not to get the ice cream or not to get the cookies. So he really dives into talking about systems. How can you set up different behaviors and systems that will help doing the things you want to do, that will help you get to your goals? How can you make those things easier? So, for example, if you don't want to eat ice cream every night, a system could be not always keeping it in your freezer. That's not that ice cream's off limits. You could still enjoy ice cream, a scoop every now and then at the store down the street, or it's not that ice cream is restricted. It's just, if you're trying not to eat it every night, how could you set up your environment? How could you set up a system to make it easier for you not to eat it? Or a system like, could you take your gym bag with you to work instead of, I know I used to do this, instead of going home, once I would get in the door, I'd see the couch and then all of the things would come to my mind of, oh my gosh, that kid today was so annoying and I'm exhausted and I had that parent meeting. And then I would plop on the couch and the workout wouldn't happen. Could you take the gym bag with you, change into the gym clothes before even leaving work, so that it makes it easier to get to the gym on your way home? That type of thing. Systems are my favorite. Small systems that you make small changes here and there. They seem silly. And I'll even have clients say, I'm embarrassed to admit, but keeping my athletic shoes by the front door makes me go for a walk. What's wrong with me? And I'm like, that's amazing that you figured that out, right? Because
Yeah.
self-knowledge is incredible. Any way you can kind of hack your brain, or I say gamify something or make it more fun. Could you have a system where you save your favorite podcast for when you're walking and you're only allowed to listen to it when you're on a walk? So you get so excited to go on that walk so you can listen to that episode. Small things like that really go a long way.
Yes, absolutely. Years ago, when I was training for a marathon, I was so intimidated by it and hadn't run any race ever. But I started right when I got home. I would change into my workout clothes immediately. like right after work, change into my workout clothes, and I'd be like, okay, regardless if I run or walk, I'm just gonna put on my workout clothes. And then when outside I put them on, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm already dressed, so I might as well go out, And sometimes it's just those little things that set you up for success.
I love that. Yeah. I even say, do tell yourself 5 minutes. I love the 5 minute thing because 5 minutes you can do. 30 minutes, even of exercise, may seem too much. But 9 times out of 10, when you're moving your body, 5 minutes turns into 10, turns into 15 because it feels really good.
Yeah.
And when you're tired and stressed, the last thing you want to do sometimes is work out, but that's exactly what you need, even if it's just 5 minutes some days.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that can be used in every area. Like, okay, I'm gonna go for a run for 5 minutes. I could do anything for 5 minutes, and then you just keep like playing it over and over in your head. And 5 minutes seems so little, or 1 minute. Sometimes I say 1 minute. I'm not gonna lie, and
Yeah,
that's all you need.
I'll take 1 minute. Yeah, I'll take anything is better than zero, which is a great other mindset shift. A
Yes.
lot of people think if I'm not going to work out for 30 minutes, I should just not do anything. But throw that mindset out right away. 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes. And so that is a win. Count that as a win. If you do a 1 minute, jumping jack exercise in your apartment or a 5 minute walk around your apartment complex, count that as a win.
Yes. And I think that like 1 minute of just getting outside or getting some exercise in can be more transformational than we even realize.
It definitely can. Yeah.
So when it comes to food, I know that there's a lot of control issues sometimes, like we're using our food to control our emotions or to make us feel better about something. Is there any tips you have related to food and control?
I think the first step is always recognizing that you're using food for something other than hunger. There's so many different things, right? It could be joy, even. It doesn't always have to be negative. It could be stress, it could be boredom. And I kind of hate the idea that you can never eat when you're not hungry, that you should feel hunger pangs before you eat, because that's not really realistic. There's going to be times when I have a scoop of ice cream when I'm not hungry because I've just had the meal, but we're getting dessert. And so it's really important, though, I think, on a regular basis to identify when you are kind of using food to self soothe and pause there and then ask yourself, is there something else I could do before going to the food? So it's not that you can't have the food. You could still have it maybe in 10 minutes, maybe try something else first. I know a lot of clients, it's stress, struggling with stress eating. One client used to leave work. She was super, super stressed at work and realized that just leaving work to deal with it, she would just drive straight to the McDonald's drive-through. And so just pausing, and I had her do a 30-second breathing exercise in the car to kind of release the stress. That worked a lot of days. Or even knowing that that was going to be her outlet, driving a different route home so she didn't pass the McDonald's. There's small things that you can do, but the first piece is actually naming, I'm actually inclined to stress eat right now. This isn't, I had lunch 2 hours ago. I'm really not hungry for McDonald's. I know exactly where this is coming from. And then pausing and seeing, is it a 1 or 5 minute walk? Is it some breathing? Is there something else? Calling a friend? Social media and the phone gets demonized, but maybe you're checking out at the end of the day and you do scroll for 5 minutes on Instagram. Like, is there something else that could be that stress relief that you need besides food?
Can you talk about the breathing exercise a little bit and why that's important and how that helps?
Yeah, it helped her. I asked kind of what felt comfortable to her. Did she want to do a more formal meditation app? She didn't. So we decided she would just kind of breathe in and think about things she's grateful for and things she was excited for in the evening, and breathe out specific stressors of the day, and just do this slowly for 30 seconds to a minute. So she had a really tough time transitioning from the stress of the day to going home and being with family. And then she felt when she got home, she, first of all, had just had a bunch of McDonald's, which didn't feel good. And then she wasn't able to be present for her kids because she still felt all that stress from the day. So it's incredible what breath work can do. I don't know all of the science behind what it does to the brain, but I know it can never hurt to breathe deeper and slower and to pause. And so that can be a really cool thing to try. Again, it's one of those things that seems very simple and almost too easy, like it couldn't work, but it can be really powerful. Just like you said, a 1 minute walk can be powerful.
Yeah. And I like how you said, like, okay, breathe in the excitement and breathe out the stress. And, maybe sometimes it is a matter of being intentional, like being intentional that you're going to let go of that stress and leave that behind you and then like lean into the excitement.
Yeah, and she always wanted to enjoy her husband and kids in the evening. So more like, what can you get excited for going home and not take the stress with you? And there's different ways. There's, box breathing exercises where you like breathe in, I think for 7 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, breathe out for 7 seconds, let the air out, keep it out for 7 seconds. So you kind of envision box as you're doing it. I don't know if 7 is the exact number. I think it's pretty challenging. So maybe even 5 to start
Right.
out, but there's all these different techniques you can use. And I love that you use the word intentional, just being more intentional about breath, whether it's in the form of a more formal meditation or if it's just sitting in your car for a minute can be really great.
And I just heard today for the first time that you can like go on YouTube for gentle breathwork practices, because I know breathwork can sometimes be like hardcore, or if you've never done it before, it can be, you could lose your breath or just feel
Yeah.
like claw fingers, I think is the thing. So like maybe even just look for gentle
I
breath.
love that. Yeah. Cause then that's more stressful because you can't breathe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nobody wants that.
No. So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
Hmm. I would say just have hope. A lot of people come to me feeling confused, frustrated, and hopeless because nothing's worked. And again, they're turning inward and thinking something's wrong with them. So if you do think you felt better 10 years ago when you weighed 10 pounds less and you wish you could get back to that, even if you're going through something like menopause, even if you've had kids, don't give up hope that it's not possible for you. Know that you just haven't found what works yet, and you absolutely can, and you can have the physique, energy, and confidence that you crave.
And how can we connect with you?
I am at the Health Investment or thehealthinvestment.com on pretty much every platform. So Instagram, TikTok, which is a new venture, which is crazy in and of itself. But thehealthinvestment.com and Instagram at the Health Investment are the best places.
Brooke, you've been a total badass and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you so, so much again for having me. I've had a great time.
Thank you. It was so much fun. And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.